my lifeless body is down on the floor on the other side, and I'm looking down at it. This does not freak me out at that moment, and I don't know why. It should, but it doesn't, because I feel great. I feel this whole sense of relief. I feel this euphoria flowing through my body. It feels like it's so incredible. It's hard to put the feeling into words. It's euphoric. It's beautiful. It feels like love. It feels like a warm embrace. It just feels like total relief.
This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my guest, Ray Catania. Ray, I am so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Heather. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you today. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I first heard you at the IONS conference in Washington, D.C. Loved it. You're also the author of The Atheist and the Afterlife, which I probably got a year ago, but then I re-listened to it just over the past weekend. I enjoyed it so much. You're a motivational speaker, a coach. All of that is fascinating, but the most interesting part is that you're an atheist and then you got really tangled up in the afterlife.
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah, so I want to hear all about it. So why don't you start with your near-death experience, and then you can, lead right into some of the other crazy experiences you've had, including hearing from dead people. But
Is that crazy?
It is crazy. And then just fill us in with any background as you go along that we need.
Sure. So I think that the beginning of me becoming an atheist was really rebelling against my family, because it's not the religion that they chose, because it really wouldn't have mattered, but it was a very difficult home to be brought up into. There was a lot of drama, trauma, fighting, and things of that nature. So I took the approach, or the thought process, that there couldn't be this loving God the way it's explained to me that would allow these things to happen and me to have to be here and go through this stuff and whatnot. And so I just went to the far end of the spectrum and just went all the way to atheism. I don't even know that I knew what that was. I just knew that I didn't have to believe in things that I really wasn't sure existed, right? So in hindsight, I was probably more agnostic, but I didn't know that at the time. So growing up that way, it wasn't until I was 20 years old when I had the NDE, and the near-death experience that I had was because of a fire that took place in the kitchen. Now, to give you a little bit of a layout of the land, the kitchen was located directly under my bedroom at the time. I'm 20. I'm still living at home. Parents are there. And what had happened was there was a gas leak from the stove. Now, my bed, if you could picture this, is directly above it on the next floor. Natural gas will rise. And so I was breathing it in. It was coming up to the bedroom, and I was inhaling it all night long. That was really what was going to do the damage. So my mom gets up in the morning, and the way I understand the story, she turned on the stove, and there was this big ball of flames, and it caught fire to the wall. But the fire wasn't out of control, and it wasn't the fire or the smoke that caused me to die. It was actually the gas fumes. My father was able to put the fire out with a fire extinguisher, I understand, and then I heard the fire trucks. They did call 911. So I'm laying in bed, I'm still asleep, but I start hearing all this commotion after inhaling gas fumes for hours on end. So I go to get up to see what's going on in my house. And I find that I have difficulty telling parts of my body to move. So I was paralyzed in certain areas, like my legs felt like they just weighed 1,000 pounds and I just couldn't get them to move. My head, similarly, I couldn't get it off the pillow, and I couldn't yell, which was really weird. Like I couldn't get my mouth to yell. My wife would love that now if she could do that to me. But
Right.
my arms worked. and that my right one more than the left. And I remember pulling myself to the edge of the bed, trying to get out of the bed because I knew something was seriously wrong. I didn't know it was a fire. I have no idea there's fire trucks. I just hear commotion. So I'm trying to get out of the bed. And eventually, as I get a little closer, I pass out maybe 3 times. As I'm pulling myself, I pass out. I get up again because I hear the noise, pull myself, pass out again. The third time, I was like, I got to get out of this bed or I'm dead. I knew, I had a gut feeling that this was really bad. So I pulled myself with everything I had and I tumbled out of the bed face first. Now, when you get hit, right, you expect pain to set in a couple of seconds, right? So I hit the floor face first and I don't feel pain. It never kicks in, which is very strange. Furthermore, the reason is because I'm not in that body. I'm above it and I'm in a corner of the room. The room is a perfect square and I can picture it. I'm in like a neutral corner if it was a boxing ring, and my lifeless body is down on the floor on the other side and I'm looking down at it. This does not freak me out at that moment, and I don't know why. It should, but it doesn't, because I feel great. I feel this whole sense of relief. I feel this euphoria flowing through my body. It feels like it's so incredible. It's hard to put the feeling into words. It's euphoric. It's beautiful. It feels like love. It feels like a warm embrace. It just feels like total relief. There's no pain. There's nothing. And adjacent from me in the opposite corner is this huge white light, for lack of a better word. Calling it a light just doesn't do it justice. This light is love, peace, euphoria, everything you could possibly want to feel. And I was one with the light. So I'm just this energy being now, and I'm entangled with this light. So the light and me are one. And I can go into the light, which is like a tunnel. And I wanted to see what was on the other side. And here's why. There's a being, I don't know, male, female, or who or what, says it's okay to come into the light, Ray. It's okay. And I was like, wow, it knows my name. And I trusted the being enough to start to go through the light. And as I got into the tunnel a little bit more, that feeling of euphoria would increase. Everything was heightened. Like my senses, the visuals, colors, everything was just so heightened. It was on a different level. And so needless to say, I wanted to go to the other side. But here's what happened. So I hit the floor, remember, with my face. And that must have alerted everybody downstairs. Oh my God, Ray's still upstairs. And my father was the one to come running up first. And he kicks the door in and he scoops me up. Now I can see this. I'm watching this like it's a scene that plays out in a movie. And he's holding me and he's yelling for the paramedics, and he's very, very emotional. And I never saw that side of my father, that side that showed that he really cared for me a lot more than I thought he did. So in that moment, I wanted that. And as great as the light was, and as great as everything was that was happening, I longed my whole life to have that relationship with my father. And so I asked the being at the end of the light if I could go back. And I don't know if that's the reason I got to go back. I really don't, but I did ask. And when I woke up, I was no longer in that room. I was actually on the living room floor, flat on my back, and all the paramedics are working on me, and they've got all their stuff, and they're doing their things really quickly and talking in medical jargon that I don't understand. And I'm like, guys, what are you doing? Get off me. Like, I don't know what's going on. I just woke up, but I feel great. I'm like, I feel fantastic. Like, this is the best I've ever felt. And they're like, kid, you're not okay. So just stay there. Don't move. Let us do our thing. And I'm like, no, really. I feel amazing, because the euphoria kind of carries over for a while. And I'm like, did you see the light? Did you hear the voice? And these guys are looking at each other like, okay, it's one of those. And now I'm like, I better shut up, because if I say anything further, I'm going to go to the wrong hospital and I'm not going to be able to check out anytime soon. So I could tell they start to think I'm a little Looney Tunes. So I just shut up and I let them do their thing. And I went to the hospital and came home. And boy, like I have to say this: after the euphoria wears off, which it does, the pain kicks in, and it's like every little bit of pain that you have or ever had, like, you know how you hurt your elbow maybe 10 years ago and it bothers you every now and then a little bit, and you know, something else someplace else. Okay. Well, all of that hits you like at one time, because you were energy and you had no body, so you felt no pain. And now you go back into this body and everything hits you at once. And it's like a bomb goes off. And I was like, oh my God, this hurts so bad. Plus the chest compressions and all that stuff hurts too. So I was like, this really sucks. I want a do-over. I want to go back to the light. This is crazy. And I never did get that, you know, relationship that I was looking for. So, you know, it was unfortunate, but that's the way it went. So trying to process this, I didn't see it the way I guess I should have saw it, which was, you know, this spiritual, transformational event in my life. And if I tried to process it in that way, I told a few people. I told my family. They told me I was crazy. I told a few friends. They told me I was crazy. And they, you know, showed me all the reasons why this is not possible and blah, blah, blah. So again, I was just shut down, and I just kind of kept it to myself. And I chalked it up like this analytically. I said, well, I fell out of the bed on what was likely a sunny day, and I fell in front of the window. I know that much. And the light coming through was probably the sun, and it was warm and it felt great. And I inhaled so much gas fumes that I was probably high out of my mind. And that explains the voice and the hallucinations and everything else. And I chalked it up to that, and I put it in a box and I put it away, compartmentalized it completely, because I had nowhere to go with this. There was no computers yet. There was no internet yet. I'm showing my age, but we didn't have any of those things. So all I had, the few people I had to explain this to, shot it down and told me I was crazy. So I went with that. I had nowhere else to go. It wasn't until many years later I found ions, which was huge for me, to say the least, because finding other people who saw the light or been in the light, I mean, that was just remarkable to me. I didn't know there were so many of them. But so at this time in my life, I'm just putting this in a box and trying to hold on to this atheistic view. But here's what happens. When I cross over and I come back, I have a connection now with the other side that I didn't have necessarily before. Certainly not to this magnitude if I did. And what I mean by that is I've become like this portal for energy beings, I call them, or spirit, to come through and be, and I don't see them as people. I see them as energy. I just see energy everywhere. So I remember it was a couple of years after that I moved out. I got my first bachelor pad, right? I was like all excited. I was like, this is going to be great. Chicks, guns, fire trucks, parties every night, right? I move into this place and it's like filled with people all the time, but there's nobody there. It's all energy and it's all freaking me out. And because I can feel the emotions of the energy, if you can imagine that. So I could feel the anxiety. I could feel like the stress, like, why won't he answer me? You know, meaning me, like, why won't I answer? I don't know what you are. I'm an atheist. Go away. I don't know what to do with this. Right. And, I'm starting to think I'm losing my mind. The appliances would go on and off by themselves. The lights would flicker. This is happening. This is a brand new apartment. It was a brand new building. I was the first one to live there. And I don't believe in it being haunted because I'm an atheist, right? So none of this is making any sense to me. I called the maintenance guy over and over and over to fix things, the electrical stuff in the apartment. And he says, listen, after like the 20th time I called him, he says, I'm going to tell you, kid, never call me again. You're crazy. There's nothing wrong with your apartment. And I was like, okay, maybe I am crazy. So this starts to like sink in. Maybe I really am. And so I turned to alcohol and drugs because I can't sleep at all in this place. And I was just kidding around one time on the phone with one of my best friends. And I was like, and it's a landline now that we're talking on. No, we had cell phones, but they were like $2 a minute to use them. And I was just talking and I was like, I think my house is haunted. Ha ha ha. And it went click. And I called him back and I said, why'd you hang up? He goes, I didn't hang up. I thought you did. And I said, no, I didn't. He goes, what were you saying again? I said, well, I think my house is haunted. Click. Okay. So this was very clear that this was a message, right? Pay attention, Ray. You're an idiot. But again, I stay with tons of alcohol and drugs just to go to sleep because the insomnia was terrible. They just kept hitting me and hitting me and hitting me. So I wind up leaving that place in 10 months. I had a 12-month lease, but I left in 10 because I couldn't take it anymore. I went to a new apartment and I was like, okay, fresh start. Here we go. This is where the parties are going to be. I'm going to tell all my friends, this is where it's going to be. And I move in and it's exactly the same thing. Same thing. Lights on, lights off, this, that, the other thing. These buildings aren't haunted. Ray is, or he's crazy. This is what I'm trying to decipher. And I'm leaning towards crazy. So this goes up. I continue with this lifestyle, constantly exercising my self-sabotaging behavior because I come from chaos. So chaos is my comfort zone throughout my 20s. I would throw myself into situations where I didn't care if I lived or died because in the back of my mind, I saw death. It wasn't so bad. And I was like, what do I got to live for? I'm crazy or it's this. Either way, I'm a young guy. Who cares? It doesn't matter. I've got this weird thought that, life is not, very important for me and no one's dependent upon me or anything like that. So this crazy behavior goes on for a while. I work for a lot of shady characters who are involved in different things, criminal activity. And one night I'm working in a place. It's a bar. It's late at night, and there was a couple of different groups at the bar, and I remember going down under the bar to get a particular bottle, which was locked up, and I hear pop, 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 pop. And I know that's gunfire. It's not my first rodeo, and I know I got to get the hell out of there. So as I'm thinking about how to get out of there, the being that was there the day that I died comes forth and says, side door, side door, side door, 3 times. And the side door's, maybe 20 feet to my right, but to get there, they're going to see me. There's no way that I can get to that door without anybody seeing me. But what choice do I have? Now, all of this is like a millisecond, but it feels like, 20 minutes has gone by because I'm scared. And so I run for the door. I get out the door, but then you're not out yet. Like I wasn't in the clear because I have to make a left and another left and go down this long corridor. And then there's another side door that takes you to the parking lot. Well, obviously I made it. And when I get out there, my car was parked right outside that door. I've never, in all the years that I worked there, I've never parked my car there. It was always on the other side of the building. I had my own space, my own private space. And I put it on that side that night. For what reason? I've got no idea. No idea. But it was there and it got me away. So, and I can remember other times now that I look back in my life, other times even as a kid, where I nearly drowned one time in the ocean because I swam out too far. And the undertow would not let me get back to shore. And I was like 10 years old and I didn't know how to get back. And I'm trying to get the lifeguard's attention, and he's looking at the other kids on this side and I'm on this side and he's not paying any attention, and I'm going down and I'm starting to panic. Well, here's that voice again that says, calm down, swim sideways, take all the time you need. It's always in threes like that. Calm down, swim sideways, take all the time you need. And I can't calm down because I'm a kid. So that's not going to happen. So he does that for me. And a feeling of calmness and peace just overcomes my whole body. And then I start to swim on an angle to shore. And I do it very slow. And it took me what felt like forever. But I finally got to shore and I collapsed. And then all the adults were like, is he okay? Is he okay? And I was like, get off me, stranger danger. And I try to run and I'm falling down and I'm running, I'm falling down. But in hindsight, this being has been with me for as long as I can remember, time and time again. So someone or something has my back, and I don't even acknowledge it or give it the respect that I should, because I don't realize that it's there for me. And so this type of lifestyle goes on throughout my 20s, and around 30, early 30s, I get married and I have kids. Now this changes things considerably. I got to get rid of the drugs and the alcohol. I got to go back to college, get a real job. I had to change my whole life because now I can't die. I have two little humans that are dependent on me, and I willed them into this world because I always wanted to have two sons. I was one of two sons. I wanted to have two sons. And, I told my wife at that time, we're going to have two sons. And she says, no, we're not. And I said, yes, we are. She said, no, we're not. I said, yes, we are. And, so she said, well, let's start with one. And I said, okay. So we started with one, and then it was two. And she hit me with a frying pan, and I was like, okay, this is great. She's only kidding, of course,
Right.
But I completely turn everything around, and I become, we sort of now have, even though it's still, they're there. And I mean, the energy beings, and it's all still present. They know I can't help them. I know I can't help them. And it's kind of like a ceasefire. Like, you stay on your side, I'll stay on my side. And when they pop up, I just ignore them. And, we coexist. Right. And I don't tell anybody about this because I don't know if I'm crazy or not. I don't know what this is, but I just learned to live with it, and I get out in my life, and I go back into the real world. I get a great job. I work my way up the ladder. I do very well. I switch companies. I do the same thing again. I did very well, and I'm at the top of my game. My kids are doing well. My marriage fell apart, and I was single for a very long time, and I didn't date. And I didn't date because my kids were little, and I just didn't know if that was a good idea or not. And I don't know if I made the right choice, but that's what I did. So I waited a very long time. So it wasn't until like mid 40s that I said, okay, maybe I'll try to settle down. My kids are older. They're in high school and whatnot. So I remember I went online because that's how we did it then, or do it now, I guess. Right. And I was trying to pick out I was going through all the different dating websites, looking for one for somebody my age that's like, not Tinder, something that was like serious. And I remember going through the sites, and they give you examples of women that are in your area to kind of get you to join. Right. So I went to this one site, and there was 4 ladies on the screen, and the third one down, I'll never forget, as soon as I saw her and she was smiling in the photo, and I was like, that's my wife. That's her. And I have got to meet her. So I joined the site, and I sent one email, and one email only. It was to her. And I told her that. I said, this is the only email I'm sending. I joined the site because you're my wife. You just don't know this yet. And if you'll have dinner with me, I'll explain this whole thing. And she's like, LOL, you're out of your mind. And I said, I know, I get that a lot. And so we did have dinner, and we did get married, and we are together. And there was no question that I had this connection with her, like not just this life, but prior to this. No question. There was definitely, I knew her without knowing her. And that was really an interesting feeling to have. But again, I'm still not embracing any of this spirituality. I'm just working and so on and so forth. So I guess it's like maybe 2, 3 months into dating, and the serious nature of the relationship starts to form. And the question that she asks me, which is probably very common, so tell me, what are your spiritual or religious beliefs? And I was like, oh, what do I say now? I said, well, truthfully, I've been meaning to figure that out, but I really haven't gotten around to it. So I don't know. What are you? And whatever she would have said, I would have been like, yeah, me too. That's good. That's good. Yeah, me too. But she was smarter than that. And she made me answer the question. I was like, I just don't know. I don't know what I am. She goes, so it wasn't long after that. It was a couple of weeks, and it was getting closer to my birthday. And she says, I'm going to buy you a spiritual clearing. And I was like, okay, what's that? She says, she starts to explain how it works. And I was like, oh, so it's like a massage. And she said, definitely not. Not at all. And I said, okay. So she goes on to explain and clearing chakras and this and that. And I'm like, okay, so we'll have cake maybe. I'm just, trying to lighten it a little bit because I don't know what this thing is, but maybe I'll get cake out of the deal. And, but the woman called me who was doing the spiritual clearing. I was at work. It was distant. I didn't have to be present. And she told me what she was going to do, how she was going to do it, told me don't make any appointments that day, don't make any life-changing decisions. And I was like, okay, I'm just listening because I don't really buy into any of this yet. And I said, I was very polite and I thanked her. And she did her thing. And she goes, by the way, if you feel a little off, don't worry. And, just call me. We'll talk about it. But you could feel a little bit off. And I was like, okay, no problem. Thank you so much. So she calls me back and she says, I'm finished. And this is what I saw. And this is what I did. And I'm listening. I'm taking some notes. And I was like, okay, great. Thank you. And within a couple of hours, I start feeling off. And I mean, really off. Like all the way back to the days when I was in that very first apartment and things were freaking me out. Here it was again. Like it was back in full force. No more your side, my side. It was very, very intrusive again. And I was like, this just can't be happening to me. I really thought I was starting to lose it. And just as I had done so much work to get my life together, doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do. And we continue to date. And this is the first time ever that an energy being comes to me in the form of a human, what appears to be human. And it's on a movie screen. That's the way I explain it. It looks like a movie screen. And then on the movie screen is this man, and he's speaking directly to me and says, I effed up. I made a mistake. You can help her. I cannot. And then I was like, what was that? And I'll never forget it. And then comes back and he says it again. I effed up, made a mistake. You can help her. I cannot. And then he's gone. And then this was a Friday. I was at work when this starts. And I leave for the day. And I just say I have a headache because I'm seeing this man over and over and over again. And I don't know what to make of it. So I go home and I'm like, okay, this is all in your head. We've dealt with this before. We can get rid of this. This is not real. Just relax, get some sleep. It'll be gone by morning. And that's what I do. But I wake up in the morning and the first thing I see is him again. Same sentence. I effed up. I made a mistake. You can help her. I cannot. I don't know who the her is. I don't know who this man is. I don't know what's happening to me. All I know is I think I'm losing my mind. And he is so persistent. It was almost like it was hourly, every hour, that he would just return and give me this message again. And it worsened over Saturday into Sunday. By Sunday, it seemed like he was every 5 minutes. And I couldn't function. I couldn't have a conversation with anybody. I couldn't drive. I remember I was in the store and I was paying for my stuff. And I don't know what I did or said, but the lady behind the counter says, "Are you okay, sir?" And I said, "No, I'm really not." And I took my card and I went back to the car and I just like broke down because I was like, I changed my entire life, everything. And just to come all the way back to this point and realize that I'm losing my mind and I have to start doing the right things to make sure that my children are taken care of. And I have to tell this woman I just fell in love with that I'm crazy and she needs to find a normal man to have a relationship with. And I've just got to like withdraw from life because I can't function. So I finally get the courage to tell her. And if all of this isn't crazy enough, by the way, on a side note, my wife is a doctor of psychology and neuropsychology. Perfect, right? I'm going to tell her I see people that aren't there and this is going to go over well. How's the salmon? So I finally tell her. And I think that the reaction I'm going to get is, here's a man, a prescription, call this guy, never call me again. But that's not her. Remember, we've been in lives together before. She actually says, when I explain to her what I see and how I see it, and this man is a stocky guy, jet black hair, beard, mustache, and this is what he says to me. And she goes, "Oh, that sounds like my dad." And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, wait. You told me your dad died like 10 years ago. She's like, "He did." And I'm like, "So you think I see dead people?" She's like, "You might be a medium and you don't know it." And I said, "What the hell's a medium?" And then I'm thinking, she's crazy. Check, please. I got to get out of there. And she continues to tell me what a medium is and what a psychic is. Which that word I've heard, but I don't really understand any of this. And she's like, "You may not be crazy at all. You just might be a psychic medium and you don't know it." And as crazy as that sounded, it offered a little bit of relief because I don't know which one is worse, really. I'm not 100% buying into this, but at least she's staying with me, right? And I'm like, this is incredible. Not what I was expecting at all. She says, "Listen, there's this medium, very, very famous medium. She's coming to our area and she'll be in town and I'll book us 2 appointments." I was going to book one for myself anyway, because I always see my dad. He always comes through. He was very powerful in life when he was alive. He was a big deal. And in death, he wasn't going to let a little thing like death prevent him from speaking to his daughter if that's what he wanted to do. So he would just find a way through. And as crazy as all this sounded, I was like, "Well, here's the only thing I've seen pictures of your dad and he doesn't have a full beard, mustache, black hair." And she goes, "Oh, no, 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 no. Those pictures that you saw were very old." She goes, "Let me show you what he looked like before he died." And sure enough, she shows me this photo of the exact man that I saw. And I was just stunned. And so I went to see the medium and I take all this with me, everything that I'm telling you and more. And I'm sitting with her and we're going through this. And I walk in and she says, "Hi, what's your name?" I said, "I'm Ray." And she goes, "Oh, you're that Ray." And I was like, I guess, I think. And she says, "Have a seat, Ray. Tell me what's going on." And I said, "Well, I think I'm losing my mind." And she says, "Why?" And I said, "Because sometimes I see people, they're not really there." And she goes, Me too. Me too. Happens to me all the time. And I was like, "Okay, wise guy." So, anyway, we get to chatting and she gets me laughing and she validates everything. I mean, everything that I've ever seen, felt, done, the NDE, everything. She was just in full acceptance. And I'm like, late 40s, and I finally find someone that understands this and gets me. It was a very emotional situation, to say the least. 2 people, right? Because my wife got it and she got it. And now I'm introduced to people who get it. And I tell them this stuff and they're like, "You don't have any idea like how awesome that is." And they're explaining it to me. And I was, okay. and I'm starting to accept maybe this is real. And if it is, what do I do with it? Where do I go? So that coming to acceptance was the very beginning of writing the first book, because I had been journaling what I was seeing as I was seeing it, keeping track of that. And those journal entries eventually were compiled and other things were added, like my backstory and stuff. And that became the first book. I was the atheist who went to the afterlife and became a believer. And that's my story. And then the second book picks up from that point forward.
And it's an incredible book, and there's actually a lot more detail in the book. So I do encourage everybody to get that. And of course, I'll always have all that information in the description. Ray, I have a lot more that I want to ask you about, but let's go ahead and take that into part 2.
Sure. Love to. Thank you.
I know I have said this before, but it is so true. Every time I think, wow, my guests can't get any more interesting, along comes somebody like Ray. Such an incredible story. And there is so much more ahead that we cover in part 2.
You can create your own life and create it to be the way you want it to be. You just have to kind of learn the system, learn how the universe works. And once you do, you can implement this for yourself and you can get yourself out of any situation. I mean, look at where I came from and, and where I am today. If you can do this just for yourself, if you can just change your own life, imagine if we all came together as a collective and made a difference. Now we change everything.
During your journeys, you've met, you said, one divine being. Tell us about that being. Truly just an incredible guest. And did any of you feel this? I have never felt this way before with a guest, but I just felt so much energy, like positive energy and emotion coming at me as I was interviewing Ray. And I'm really curious if any of the rest of you felt that energy from him. He's truly a very gifted person. And I was just shocked at how much I felt from him. So let me know in the comments. I'm really curious if I was the only one, simply because it was live and I was talking to him, or if some of you felt that too. So share that in the comments. Share anything else that you'd like to say about his absolutely incredible story and everything that happened to him. I always love talking to somebody who used to be an atheist or at least agnostic, and then how they've come full circle to where they are. For those of you that just prefer to say you made it, that's wonderful as well. Also, if you want to give it a like, that's helpful. And thank you to all of you who subscribe. And thank you to those of you that share it with a friend. I will have a link to part 2. That'll be in the description. And of course, I'll have a link to all of my episodes and a link to Ray's information and information on his books. I've read the first one. I loved it. And I plan to read the second one as well. He's really a great author. He shares everything very well. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I can't wait to hear from you. And I'm really anxious to hear, too, your thoughts after you've listened to part 2 and everything he shares there. So hopefully I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.